Hello! Today is day 2 of self-quarantine for me, and what have I decided to do with my abundance of time? Well, I'm gonna reread Twilight. Okay, so there's a little bit of backstory here. I just got home from studying abroad in Scotland, and the reason I'm back is because of the current pandemic. I got called home early, and while I was in Scotland, my friends and I rewatched the entire Twilight movie series in order to roast it, and it was hilarious. It was like the best time of my life. It was so funny, especially because 2 of the friends in the group had never seen Twilight or read the books or anything, so watching their reactions to how ridiculous the plots could be was just so satisfying. So I decided, hey, let's find out if the Twilight books are as cringy as I remember. I did really like these back in the day. I was never like a twihard, but I did enjoy them. I did read the whole series, but I haven't read them since I was like 11 years old, and I kind of feel like I'm gonna have a different opinion now, and we'll see. Okay, I didn't remember the little like Bible passage in the beginning here. It's from Genesis 2:17, and it says, "But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die." Okay, and here we go with the preface. The infamous line of, "I'd never given much thought to how I would die." Well, okay, so I like kind of forgot how ridiculous and just not great Bella's mom was. I mean, I don't know. She's very childlike, as it describes her, literally, and not very responsible. This line is talking about the phone line for the modem stapled along the floor to the nearest phone jack. I don't remember noticing these things when I first read this. When was this book written? Like, this has to be like early 2000s, right? Okay, so here Bella's talking about how she doesn't fit in with anyone, and newsflash, Bella, everyone at the age of like 16, 17, none of them feel like they fit in. It's just a teenager thing. It's not a you thing. It's not unique. I mean, God, being a teenager is so awkward. So Bella got a map of her high school, which is tiny, mind you, on her first day, and when I switched high schools in the middle, like, of the school year, I didn't get a map. In fact, I got lost on my first day and had to ask a random teacher in the hallway to escort me to my classroom. It was honestly the worst. So, you know what? She doesn't know how lucky she is. Okay, Bella is talking about how she can't remember anyone's names, and I totally get this, especially during college orientation, and they literally tell you like everyone in your hall's name, everyone who you like ever meet. There's like so many people, and you have to, you know, introduce yourself, and they introduce themselves. It's a lot of names at once, and I suck with names, so I never remembered any of them. There were some people I lived with or, you know, was in the same class with for like an entire year or semester, and I still couldn't remember their name. So I definitely relate to that. This is so dramatic. It was there, sitting in the lunchroom, trying to make a conversation with 7 curious strangers, that I first saw them. Like, oh my god. I stared because their faces, so different, so similar, were all devastatingly, inhumanly beautiful. Of course. Oh, God. No one can just be normal, except for Bella, who's exceedingly average. Thai food! Coming! Toby, you're gonna have to move. I'm sorry. Okay, so 2 things. 1, how many times is she going to describe Edward's hair as tousled and bronzed? Secondly, the whole gym class description is hilarious to me because she's talking about how horrible and hellish it is that she has to take 2 more years of PE at Forks High School compared to her high school back in Arizona. And I, again, so relate. When I moved, my second high school, I had to take another year of PE because they did 2 years at the high school I ended up graduating from. And my first high school, we only had to take 1. So I thought I was done. And then I moved here and I had to take more, and it was the absolute worst. And yes, I'm in the bath. Should probably mention that with a face mask on. I just don't understand why all these boys are like falling over themselves for Bella after like 1 day. That just doesn't happen. And it literally mentions a boy glaring at another one because he was walking with Bella and not him. Like, come on, dude. Come on. Okay, here's a list of adjectives Edward has been described with on this page so far. Musical. Oh, here's another one. Enchanting. Okay, so I am on page 114, but I wanted to talk about some quotes that I'd marked. So, on page 49, Edward says to Bella, "You put on a good show, but I'd be willing to bet that you're suffering more than you let anyone see." Okay, who talks like that to a total stranger, basically? And no teenager talks like that. No person really talks like that in real life. I know it's a book. Okay, so the next thing is the lab, the biolab. You know, the iconic thing where they're looking at the cells under the microscopes or whatever. And not only the teacher, but Mike, one of the side characters who's totally unexplicitly in love with Bella, assumes that her and Edward finished first because of Edward and not because Bella knew what she was doing. And I'm like, that's so sexist. Jesus Christ. I mean, Bella, like, was unhappy with it. But still, I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. Also, so I don't think the writing is too bad. It's not anything to comment on any way or another. You know, I've read way better writing. It's not poetic or flowery or even, you know, notably well structured, but it's perfectly fine. I'd say it's generally just average. The only thing that I have noticed occasionally is a lot of telling instead of showing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing all of the time, but for example, I marked this line. He was astonished. He stared at me in disbelief, which is just not necessarily childish, but isn't, a very descriptive way of writing. I also just happen to prefer very like poetic descriptive styles of writing personally. But like I said, it goes by really fast because it's just very easy, digestible kind of writing. And I think that's all I marked for now. Oh, one more thing. Bella and Edward have like way more personality than I remember them having. Especially Edward. Bella is still a little typical, I'm not like other girls, self-insertion type of character, but they're a lot more sarcastic and witty, and they have like a better banter than I recalled, especially considering the movies. I feel like I have the movies impressed in my memory more than the books a lot of the time, but we'll see. I have to say, this book is like a chonker. Like, it's 500 pages. And I'm not gonna say it's 500 pages of nothing, but I have read a lot of just like Edward staring at Bella, Bella staring at Edward, Bella wondering where Edward is, Edward telling Bella to stay away from him and then asking her to hang out with him the next sentence, other boys swooning over Bella, and like day-to-day high school life. But it doesn't read as boring because it flows so well. Like I said, it's very digestible, but I mean, it is kind of a lot of filler because not much has really happened so far. I have a little reading buddy. Okay, Jacob has made his first appearance. I forgot, because I don't care about Jacob at all, that he appears a lot later and plays a way less integral role in this book than he did in the first. Not that he was very present in the first movie, but he showed up pretty early. Okay, one more thing. So Jacob has two older sisters, which I don't think was mentioned in the movie. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but one of them, who is only a year or two older than Bella is, Bella is 17, so Bella is shocked by the fact that one of them is already married at like maybe 18 or 19, and I'm like, girl. I mean, not like she knows what's gonna happen, but still. Bella just tried to smolder at Jacob. How does one go about attempting a smolder, I wonder? Also, Jacob said he just turned 15. I didn't realize that he was like younger than Bella. Like, I don't know. 15 and 17, that's only 2 years apart, but that's a big jump in maturity. I mean, if you see like a 15-year-old freshman and like a 17-year-old junior in high school dating, it's just a little like, I don't know. 2 years isn't anything when you're older, but when you're this age, it's a little, I don't know. It's a little weird. Okay, other than Bella's inexplicable desire and obsession with Edward, I do not understand how she feels even remotely safe in a car with him as he is speeding and running through stop signs. And maybe it's because I drive like I'm a grandma, but I would not date a boy who drove like that, ever. Alright, this is the part I didn't forget. Edward is so authoritarian. You can't just boss people around like that, especially the girl you supposedly like. It's not attractive, it's not kind, it's just creepy and rude. Okay, here comes the part where Edward admits that he followed Bella. Followed her to Port Angeles. Because that's a normal thing to do, right? Stalking, totally acceptable. I kind of feel like Edward is taking pointers from You, the show You. You know, if that came out 10 years ago, but whatever. I mean, that's an obsession. It's not healthy. It's not. This whole relationship is unhealthy. Interrupt our regular program to show you Toby again. He is currently sleeping on my foot, so I can't move. But we've gotten to the part where she guesses that he is a vampire, and he admits it, and blah 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 blah. It is finally confirmed, and the scene in the book actually happens in his car on the way back from Port Angeles. I just feel like that movie scene of, you know, them in the woods and him being like, say it out loud, vampire. It's so iconic and just so kind of ridiculous. But that's not even how it happens in the book. But the movies actually stick fairly close, to be honest. This is so cringy and awkward. They're both just too anxious to be away from one another. Oh, and yes, this is a giant stuffed koala. Their name is Eucalyptus. How am I supposed to read this without cringing? I admit though, I'm just not one for romance, especially when it overtakes the entire plot. Really, the reason I was so interested in these when I was in middle school was the whole like vampire, werewolf, supernatural stuff, because I was super into that. And I still kind of am, not as much as I was back then, but anything that had to do with like demons, vampires, witches, I just wanted to read or watch it. But my god, the romance is so cringy. Okay, it's on page 195 where the iconic lines appear. About 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire. Second, there was a part of him, and I didn't know how potent that part might be, that thirsted for my blood. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. In love with him. In love with him. She's known this guy for like a month. Excuse me? Like, and they weren't even talking for half of that. Possibly supposed to read with him looking so cute. In other news, Bella has described Edward's eyes as liquid topaz. Gag me. I really wish that I had like started counting the number of times the word smoldering had appeared in this book, because I think we're up to at least like 50. Like every moment of Bella's days is cataloged in this book. I don't need to read about every single class, every night she goes to bed. I don't care. At least here is the accurate part. Teenagers trying and failing to keep their hands off of each other. If that's not horny teenagers. I don't know what is. Okay, so this line I think particularly shows how unhealthy this relationship is, or this obsession. So Bella is, as always, thinking about Edward, and she thinks, besides, since I'd come to Forks, it really seemed like my life was about him. Emphasis on the about. Your life should never be about someone else. It's your life. That is not healthy. And that's just, oh God, that's not a good line to, like, have 12-year-old girls read and assume is normal behavior or thoughts. It's really not. Your whole life shouldn't be sort of sacrificed for your interests in just a guy. It shouldn't be. Bella really, really does lack any sense of self-preservation. Edward is right. I hate to admit it, but he is. It's not normal. It's not good if you don't care if you come home or not, as long as you got to make out with a hot boy. Is it really worth it? Because I don't think so. Edward sparkles in the sunlight. He glitters like a fairy princess. And no one else finds it creepy that a over 100-year-old man is dating a 17-year-old. Like, I know he's 17 years old, but not really. It looks like I haven't moved, but it's been a few hours. I've had some pad thai. I've eaten a cookie. And I've tried to push past the whole, it's so romantic that Edward watched me while I was sleeping thing. I just can't. I can never get over that. That's stalker behavior. Not cute. And, I just, oh my God, I had to comment on this thing that I just read. Okay, so Bella's talking about them potentially getting married one day. Or insinuating it. They've literally only been officially dating for like a single day. One day. There are couples who have been together for years and years and still don't talk about marriage. And again, she's 17. Okay, I'm about to go to bed, but I wanted to update on Twilight. So I am on page 339 out of, I don't know, what is this, like 500 pages? 498. So I'm fairly close to being done. Like I said, I think I said earlier, this reads really easily. I think that's why I devoured the books in middle school, because they were just very consumable. But like I said, just very cringy, and it really lacks plot. All of that stuff at the end with, like, James and whatever hasn't even really begun to happen yet. It's just been Edward and Bella staring at each other in biology, Edward and Bella going on a hike, Bella tripping over things. I mean, it goes by really quickly, but when you pause to think about it, nothing actually happens for most of this book. One positive, I guess I will comment on, is the fact that while their relationship is not ideal, when it comes to the characters, they have a lot more personality than I remember compared to the movies, and just compared to, you know, what I recall from reading this series. I'm not saying that they're, like, the most interesting characters ever, but they have more, like, presence. Bella has more tenacity and humor. Edward isn't as dominated by that controlling, stony personality that is portrayed in the films. He's a little more, you know, I don't know, open, kind, tender. Okay, now it just feels like I'm talking about meat, but he has more of a personality than I recall. And so does Bella. Bella, still not my favorite human being. She's a book character, Erin. But I don't hate them. Do I think their relationship is to die for? No. Especially how fast it happened. Oh my god. So, basically, they went on like one date and were immediately in love with each other, talking about getting married, being together forever and ever and ever. And I was like, insta love who? Oh my god. Okay, I know like first teenage love can be a lot and very present, but whoa, that went from 0 to 100 so quickly. They haven't even like introduced him to Charlie, who, by the way, in the books, but especially in the movies, is the only redeemable character and my personal hero. The other ones I don't care about at all. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I do feel like most of this vlog has been me sitting in bed with eucalyptus. I swear I have moved. I've eaten. I've done other stuff. I just haven't shown it. And I'm not gonna lie, I did spend a lot of time in bed today, trapped by my cat. He has really missed me and has been sitting on me all day. Okay, reading update. It is the next night, and things are starting to happen. Finally, about 350 pages in, Bella is about to go play baseball with the Cullens, and if you've read this or you've seen the movies, you know what's gonna happen shortly after that. It just has been a lot of nothing until now, though, not gonna lie. It's entertaining in a way, but it's fluff. It's not anything with a lot of substance for the majority of the novel. Everyone keeps talking about how brave Bella is for hanging out with vampires, dating a vampire, going into a house full of vampires. It's not brave, it's stupid. There's a difference. I just don't understand how and why Bella constantly insists that Edward is perfect. A perfect person, perfect at everything he does. Just, oh my god, it's almost irritating how many times she has to mention it. No one's perfect. He's certainly not. And I feel like it's almost belittling to herself, in a lot of ways. And I don't know, I don't appreciate that at all. Okay, so James has decided to hunt Bella, and Edward, without even consulting Bella or asking what she wants, or even explaining the situation to her, decides to just take her away from Forks. You can't just make decisions for her. Like, I understand the danger, whatever, but she deserves to at least know what you're planning and to have a say in the matter. I understand why she had to say the things she did to Charlie to get away, but it's so heartbreaking and mean. Like, oh my god, he must be so upset and hurt. Like, she literally tells him that she doesn't want to end up trapped in Forks with him, just like her mom, who left him and who he still is in love with. Like, oh my god. Okay, things are finally starting to happen. Alice and Jasper are with Bella in Phoenix, and she has received the phone call from James, so she is going to go join him to protect her mother. Obviously, little does she know that her mother is not there. And that is where the real action begins. Only at the very end of the book. Okay, not that it wasn't brave for Bella to go essentially sacrifice herself to save her mother, even though that was a trick. The fact that she essentially missed out on the entire final battle because she was passed out is just, like, kind of annoying. We basically missed out on witnessing the coolest part in the entire book. Alright, James is defeated, Bella's in the hospital, and Edward is promising to never, ever leave her. Just wait until the next book, Bella. Bella's in the hospital, practically begging Edward to turn her into a vampire. She literally tells him, "You are my life. You're the only thing it would hurt me to lose." Yeah, that's healthy. What about your parents, your other friends, family? You know, Edward isn't the only person in your life who exists. Oh my god. And that's it. That is the end of Twilight. Final thoughts. It was both better and worse than I remember. The characters have more personality, but the relationship is just as unhealthy as I recalled. Just so obsessive, and that's just not okay. I also don't really enjoy the controlling figure Edward has sort of become in Bella's life, and I don't understand why Stephenie Meyer would choose to romanticize certain things about that, like the stalking, the watching her sleep at night. That's not cute, romantic, attractive. It's creepy and wrong. When it comes to the actual plot, not much happens until the very end. I don't hate the plot, it's just that, you know, it doesn't start until, like, here, right? So that's a big chunk of book without anything really going on. Not a lot of action. There's a lot of sighing and dreaming of Edward and blah 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 blah. I have to say though, it's not boring. It's entertaining, it flows by really well. The writing itself isn't anything to write home about, but it's decent, it's average, flows well. Also, I have a friend. I don't know. I don't think the relationship is anything to be idolized. I don't think the book is really anything special. It does in some ways make me feel nostalgic, but I wasn't obsessed with this the way a lot of people were back in the day. I just read them and enjoyed them. I think the books are definitely better than the movies. They're a lot less cringy, and oh my god, like I said before, the characters, they joke and laugh, they banter. There's a lot more to them than in the movies. Bella she's flat in the movies, and Edward is not even charismatic at all. He's just creepy. And in the books, both of those things are still true, but they're a little more rounded out. Anyway, I'm gonna end that whole segment and this whole video from my bed, where I've been reading this book pretty much the whole time. I mean, I'm being held prisoner by my cat, so I didn't really have much of a choice. But my bed is my favorite reading spot, and I am glad in some ways to be back to read here. I don't think I'm going to reread the rest of the series, especially Breaking Dawn. Oh my god. Even when I liked this series back in the day, I hated Breaking Dawn. I don't care for the plot or the weird dual perspectives. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, that Jacob gets a point of view in that book, and I just don't care. I'm sorry. I guess if I had to choose, I'm Team Edward, not Team Jacob. Jacob was never a candidate. Come on. But Twilight, whatever you think of it, good or bad, it's just kind of okay. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't hate it. And that's my thoughts. Peace out. Did I really just say peace out? Oh my god. I'm just ending this right now.